Hello, everyone. Remember, I told you some other time that I talked for a while, 6 minutes or whatnot, and then I noticed that it's not recording or something, and I was laughing for like minutes because it was so funny to me. Well, it's not funny tonight because I just finished 35 minutes of video for you guys. And when I wanted to replay it, it was only 10 seconds. It just, and I'm not really laughing. I'm just pissed off. But anyhow, show must go on. I was just going to say that four-letter word because that's the only way I can describe how I feel right now. Shit. God damn it. Anyhow, I hope you're doing all well. I don't give a damn right now. Really, who's going to say that whole thing? I don't even remember what the hell I said. Okay, let's begin. Remember last time, first of all, again, this is now the first, I think, video in 2016. Is it? I hope it is. And I wish you all a wonderful year as I did before the year became new. And hope that you all will have plans for this year, plans that would bring more balance and happiness to you, at least as much as we are in control of. The people that you mingle, hang around with, choose better. If you're going through a breakup, which of course you are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching me now here. You'd have better things to do. Take good care of yourself and see what the new year will bring for us and what we and how we will manage it. Now, don't want to be long-winded. I've got lots of things to talk about, so let's begin. Remember last time we talked about the default communication for us humans, as it was in the caveman's time, was by pictures, pictorial. There was no words, there was no sound to record. They couldn't be talking to each other. They had no words and languages. But they would draw pictures in the cave walls and, chisel it through the rocks or however they would draw it, and they could communicate. They could relay messages to each other. And that is the default of our natural translating mechanism that we could understand then, when there was no education or words or writing and ways of communication of that sort, including today even. If, let's say, I'm trying to communicate with someone from a different country that I don't understand their language and they don't understand my language, well, we can still communicate through sign language, through pictorial pictures that we can draw, and we can get our meanings transferred and translated into each other and communicate. So the default communication is pictorial, and whatever we remember them. As long as they have a physical existence, we remember them by image, by picture. If we say delicious pomegranate, we have a picture in our mind of pomegranate. If we're talking about, how it is cut in half or pit in half, or, taking the seed out, we're picturing all that, right? If we say someone on a white horse, well, we imagine the person on the white horse, a warrior on the white horse, a swordsman on the white horse, a rider on the white horse. We imagine the white horse. And if we talk about whatever we talk about, if it has a physical existence, we will imagine it, we would understand it, and bring the picture of it in our heads. And the same thing we do with anything else. Let's say we we let communication take place by images, by pictures. We let clues come to us, not necessarily from words, but from pictures, images. Last time we talked about this, that how you see a beautiful girl, beautiful to you, because all girls are beautiful, but whoever likes a different kind of a look or uh, shape or whatnot. So you see a beautiful girl to you, and then you suddenly, it communicates to you that image, that picture, many other things without any word having been said. You haven't talked to her, you haven't seen, interacted with her, you haven't been in, done, gone anywhere, any activity, so you don't really know about each other's behavior. But that look of her communicates lots of things that has been uttered to you, you see the image, and you get all your clues from that image, all your information about her characteristics, her education, her way of living, her way of thinking, all of that. Or perhaps you saw someone that nicely looking like the girl that you're seeing, or the way she's dressed, or the way she has done her hair, or she carries herself. So you've seen a similar kind of a look in a movie or somewhere you read, and you give all those attributes that that person had in that movie, or the way you imagine it, to her education, ability to handle life, manage life, responsibilities, smarts and talents and abilities, capabilities, all that, you give it to her. So that one image, one picture, suddenly brought a file full of information which none of them was uttered or written, given to you, spoken to you. But you let pictures, images, supply you with lots of information that may or may not be correct. So this is what we do. This is what you do. So you take a snapshot of someone, dressed nicely, and her hair is nicely done, the clothing, and it looks beautiful and clean, and everything color coordinated, the boots, the high heel, whatever, it looks so presentable and so ladylike, so sexual, or however it affects you, impresses you. And you take that as the whole person, the entirety of that person's character, abilities, mentality, and interests, and policies in life, and approach to life, everything else. All you needed was that picture, image. So a snapshot of a person represents the whole of that person the way you imagine it, which is, that's the way we are. We know it's wrong, but that's how most of us do things, right? Or at least did things at a certain age. And so when you break up with her, when you remember her, you remember her by the image that you had when you guys met. You went to have ice cream together, you have that image, the smiles, the kissing, the hugging, the walking in the park, and all the romantic things. You have those images which always represents her in your mind. When you think of her, those images come in. Never the images that have been bad come in. Never the fights, never the arguments, never the ugliness, never the behavior that you guys didn't like about each other comes to your minds. And whenever you think of her the same way you saw her, or you imagined her, or you thought of her when you guys met, when everything was wonderful. And we never think about this, but if you think about it, it's not really accurate information if you constantly think of a person or something with the image that you have from them from the time you just met. Because things change. But why is it that we keep the same image of that person, even though if times have changed, they have changed, and so on and so forth? But whenever we recall them, we bring the same image that we had often when everything was good and we were together and so on. Just imagine if you had a car. Let's say if you have a car, if you had a car, a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW or any other car that you like, and 20 years later you don't have it, you sold it out, but every time you think of it, you think of the car, you think of it the way it was when it was new, when everything about it was perfect. You know, I had this car, it was so beautiful, and I would shine it, I would wax it, I would, take care of it. And every time you think of that car, even though 20 years later and you don't have that car anymore, and by the time you were getting rid of it, that car was a clunky, it wasn't working well. But when you think of it as that original car. Because every car gets old. BMW, Benz, these are all great cars. But if you imagine them always as when they were at the beginning, brand new, or when you had them and they were running perfectly, then if you always think of them that way, well, that's not accurate information, is it? But then you will always miss it because you think, when you think of them, you think of them as when they were all running perfectly. Or if you have let's say, if you're a, show jumper and you work with horses, and you had a horse that, was energetic and talented, and you had trained her, and you would jump with her perfectly, and, competitions or whatever. And when the horse is like 16, 17, 18, it's old now. Horses live to 28, 30, maybe even 32. But when they hit 18, so on, well, it's, horse is pretty old. Some horses, mind you, the horse that I won the national championship in equestrian, that horse was 18 years old, but anyhow, back in the ranch. So if you think of the horse, you always think of the horse when it was all energetic, and you always think of the horse when it was clearing the jumps perfectly. You never have the image of the horse when it was refusing a jump, when it stopped in front of the jump, or it brought the obstacle down, hit the obstacle with his hands or feet. But you always think of the best part of it. Like, you always think of the horse as it was when it was in its top form. You don't have the image of the horse when you think of it as when it was refusing to jump in a competition, or in a parkour, in the area that the obstacles were there for you to train the horse. Why is it? Because we don't automatically update the images that we are running by, that we remember things by. Anything that has a physical existence, we recall them and remember them by their image, by their physical shape. But we don't update that image. We always keep the same original image that we had from them. And this is exactly why we miss our exes. Look, let me give you an example. I use myself in there. When I was in my 20s, or earlier, when I was 16 or 17, I guess, there was an actress in the world, very famous, and one of the most beautiful women I'd ever seen. Raquel Welch. Raquel Welch was, they would call her what symbol of sexuality at the time. She was so beautiful, everything about her, face, body, hair, everything. Let's say I was lucky in my 20s and she was in her 20s, and she saw me with Psyche, she liked me, and we became boyfriend-girlfriend. Wishful thinking. Bear with me. Fantasies. So let's say, then after a while we broke up. A year or two together, or whatever, we broke up. Now, if I keep thinking, 20 years later, If I keep thinking of her, or whenever I think of her as when she was, when we met and we were together, which we were both in our 20s, and of course I would still miss her and desire her because my information is not updated. Of course, she was beautiful, mind you, in her 30s and her 40s and her 50s, still, and no stopping to her. She's perfect. So, but for the argument's sake, just so that we can deliver something, let's say another girl, not her, because she's perfect. But let's say if I don't update that picture to how she would look now, then I would always think of her as it was then, and the image in the picture which would represent her would not be accurate to today. So I would still think of her the same way. I would still be impressed and have the same feelings and emotions as I did then. So that means, but some of you say, well, look, I just broke up yesterday or 2 weeks ago or 6 months ago. She still looks the same. So it's not like if I would update her look and then I would think of her with her new look as it is accurately today, and then I wouldn't feel the same way as I did when I was with her. Okay, I'm coming to that. With that look, that is original look of your girlfriend, when you imagine her, when you think of her, whether you broke up, 2 years ago, a year ago, 2 weeks ago, whenever, 6 months ago, but when you think of her with that look, with that image, with the picture you have of her in your mind that represents her, well, with it, there's a file that is coming. The file that you gave her all those wonderful characteristics, her manners, her behavior, her mentality, her smartness and what she was good at, and all the tolerance, all the patience, all the abilities, manageabilities, all the caring or compassion, all the unselfish, and all the wonderful thing that she had when you had met her comes along with the image that you have in your head when you think of her, in your memories. But now that and none of the stuff that was the reason that you guys broke up. Because as we said, like the horse and the car, you always think of what how they were perfect when they were brand new, when the horse was jumping all the obstacles and not refusing all the strong points of, that, favorite experience of yours. It comes with the image. Of course, we're not comparing the cars and the horse and the girlfriend, same. We're just trying to get the point across by focusing on the fact that when we think of an image of something, we bring with it the same file of characteristics and attributes that they had at the beginning of working with them, or driving the car, or training with the horse, or having the relationship with your girlfriend. With that image, when you think of her, the same characteristics as when everything was good, when you guys were together and enjoying and have a good relationship, would come with it, because you didn't update the file. So the image and the characteristics that comes with it in your mind when you think of your ex is still the same image in the same file as when you guys were good together, or when you had just met and you didn't update the file. That's why those feelings would all be positive and impresses you and affects you the way it did when you guys were together and everything was fine, and you will miss her. You would desire her. So, what do we have to do? We have to update the file. Now you're not together for many reasons, whatever reason it was. So that means that person is not the same person, because if it was the same person, you would still be together. Now you're not together. That means things have changed. Well, if things have changed, why do you still have the same image of her as when things hadn't changed and you guys were in love and liked each other? That image of then does not represent that image of now. And it doesn't come with all the files and all the reasonings and all the images of the bad things, the bad behaviors, the way you guys didn't treat each other well, and all the I lost you guys. So it doesn't come with all those things that has gone wrong. It comes with all the information that was at one time it was all good. So you have to update it. Otherwise, you will still miss her and be impressed with her. Look, remember when you met her, somehow you got impressed with her look, the physical look, communicated with you, pictorial, caveman time, the pictures, the image, what you saw of her body, of herself, communicated to her a lot more than what was apparent. Communicated to you all kinds of good stuff. That look represented certain discipline, represented certain organizational skills, represented smarts, represented manners, class, everything good. That image, when you saw her physical appearance, all these other things were communicated to you by just looking at her. Or whatever it was, somehow you felt she's better than you. She impressed you. You felt she's higher than you, classier than you, more important than you, better than you. She's more than you. So that's why you thought of her more than what you were, or more than what she really was. But you didn't know. You thought she's all that. Something caused you to be impressed by her. For whatever reason, you got impressed and you thought of her as important, more important than you. Then you thought of her as if she was very special. That's how you got impressed. Let me go a little bit more common. You know how it is when you go to a restaurant and you order some food and you want more of that butter, or more of that bread basket, or more of that fish that you ordered. And who's in charge of, who's in control of that? The waiter, your server. And suddenly, because that server can give you, provide to you what you want, that server becomes more important to you than if you didn't want that stuff. Because that person seems to be the key, the one that can make that happen. Remember, we're not demeaning anyone who is a waiter or waitress or server or whatnot. We're just trying to use some logic to deliver something. Or a person who comes to your home and fixes your appliances. Because he or she can fix that appliances, suddenly that person, repairman, becomes more of an authority, more of an important figure, a very smart. But he's only smart in that one job, that one thing, that one criteria, that one area, that one specialty of his. Maybe he's not so good in other social traits. Maybe he's not economically as well off as you are. Maybe he's not as intelligent in economics, sciences, physics, or health, or whatever it is that you are good at. Maybe he's not any success in that, any experience in that. But suddenly, he's a certain authority. He impresses you as he's important because he can do something that you cannot. He has some knowledge that you don't have. Yeah? Someone that can fix something for you that you can't. Someone that can move something for you that you can't. Suddenly that person becomes of a certain authority, certain importance, just because that one thing that he could do more than you could. You needed someone to do it, and that was the someone who could do it. Suddenly becomes more important, more than you, and you have a certain respect for it. Yeah? Some position. That server in the restaurant, because has a uniform on, just if somebody is not feeling so well, you expect that server to know what to do. Or as if he's a lawman, as if he's a physician or knows exactly what to do in a situation, just because he represents certain authority on that particular arena. Now, the same thing happens when you meet a girl and she's beautiful or somehow impresses you, something about her impresses you, and you think of her, she's more than you. But she's more than you for some particular criteria, some particular reason. She's a woman, that's one, you're not, so she impresses you. She's beautiful, or she's carrying herself well, she's dressed nicely, or the sexuality, you're impressed by her looks, or you're turned on, and somehow she is the power. And when you think of her later on, after breakup, you still have the same images that she's better than you. You still are impressed by what you were impressed when you look at her at the beginning of the relationship, and you thought she's more than you. She's better than you. And you were impressed. She was an authority figure to you. Now, after the breakup, when you think of her, you still bring the same image with the same files. And you're still impressed because you still think that image, that file represents she's still better than you for some reason, whatever that reason was, sexuality or her knowledge or whatever it was. But you need to update that file so you won't be impressed when you think of her anymore. You won't desire her. You don't miss her because you miss her, and you desire her because you think of her as she's still impressive to you, whether by look or because the file that comes with the image that you think that you have of her. All the criteria, all the reasons that you feel she's better than you're impressed and you miss her, all the good things that you guys did together, all the memories and all that, you bring all that with when you think of her and her image comes to your mind. Now you got to update that. The breakup has happened, and you got to remember why breakup happened. Breakup happened because things were not the same as it always was. She was not the same person anymore. There was reasons, there were problems. You guys had fights. She behaved badly, or you behaved badly. Together, you weren't making it anymore. You were not impressive to each other. So you got to think of her. So you will take that one reason that made her feel and look better than you, more than you, out, away. Diminish her value in your mind, because you still think of her as so highly, because of whatever reason it was that you felt she was so highly, but you still think of her the same way. But take that away. When you take that away, then she's diminished to what she is today. The information becomes accurate, because right now you're thinking of her and you're dealing with her and treating her as if the information is exactly as it was then, which was, for then, it was all good. But now she's changed. But you haven't updated your file. So when you think of her, you think of her as she was. You don't think of her with the image that she should have now of her. You think of her with the image that she had then, and the file that you had given about her attributes then comes with it as well. Update it. If it's years change, she doesn't look the same, well, update the look. So when you think of her, you bring her new image. If it's the mentality and manners and the things that went on, the stories and so on, well, let that file come in, because you never have an image of when things went bad. Remember the horse, you always remember when the horse cleared all the jumps. You don't remember your horse when it was refusing to jump. And with anything else, you always remember the good stuff. You don't remember the bad stuff. So when you think of your ex right now, the image that comes to your mind brings all the good stuff with it. You got to update this file. So when the image comes, the information is updated. So what do? Well, you make it accurate. What is the accuracy? The accuracy is this. When you think of her, instead of thinking of her as so spiffy and hair nicely done and the high heels and everything so on, well, think of her, take that edge away, take that superiority away in your imagination, in the picture that you bring to your head when you think of her. What? Think of her as when she just woke up, stinky mouth. Think of her as what she's not good at. Maybe she's not good in economics. Maybe she's not good in math. Maybe she's not good in science. Maybe she's not really impressive in her taste in food or in music or something that you really don't think she's talented in that. So bring the file, bring her to a level that it's not impressive to you anymore, and it's the accuracy of her reality, not what you have bestowed upon her, all the good things that you gave her, whether she deserved it or whether you just looked at her when you met her and you thought, oh, she's so good looking and her hair this way, her dress that way, and it reminded you of somebody in the movie that looked that way, and she was so personable, and she was so smart and academically educated, and she was so disciplined and she could manage things, and that character, you gave all those characters to her, and now you still remember your ex-girlfriend with those characters that you gave it to her and she didn't own it really. Now, update her file and make it accurate to the reality and actuality, but really about the things that would take away that edge that you had given her away when you think of her and the image comes to your mind, which means think of her about the traits that she's not good at. So when you think of her, you don't see her as superior to you, you see her as, in fact, not impressive. So when she's not impressive, and you won't miss her, you won't have a reason, because it's the file that comes with the image that really makes you feel desirable. And you have given certain kind of qualities to that image, and you take those qualities away in your mind. So therefore, when you think of her with the qualities that is not impressive. And therefore, she doesn't look that desirable anymore when you think of her. Therefore, you don't miss her. Therefore, you don't want to be with her. You don't want to have her again. And therefore, you have an easier time to move on and find a better partner for yourself, and easier time to manage your breakup. And that is how you change the image, which is a default way of human being communicating and receiving information. And therefore, whenever you think of your girlfriend, you will have an image of her in your mind, which that image has certain emotional file, which you react with the same emotions because that information file hasn't changed. Therefore, it affects you the same, and you would react to it the same emotionally, and then you want it. But if you change all of that, diminish all those qualities, so when you think of her after breakup, you will see it the way it is, not favorable and not impressive, and therefore you have no reason to think that you can't find someone better. You can't find someone smarter. You can't find someone more compatible. You can't find someone more impressive. And therefore, she's no longer impressive. And you have an easier time to manage your life and get on with it. And be able to understand the reality of your life and not illusion of she was so much that great and she was the best one and no one else is like her and all that. Because you're not running on the rerun of the actress who was so young when that movie was made, who had different qualities and different abilities and impressive qualities and traits. It's now accurate if the same actress that made a movie 25 years ago now makes a different movie, and you see that movie, you're not impressed with many things, maybe her talents or her looks or whatever, but you gave it the accuracy of the information, and then you're now judging her with however the new information affects you, and that would definitely not be the same as before, and you will therefore be free to move on and not think of her as she's better than you, which is the reason we are interested or impressed by someone and interested in some woman of your choice. So I hope this will give you something to think about, and I talked a lot, and I hope this recorder has recorded it. I don't have to redo it again. Okay. I wish you all a wonderful year, and take good care of yourself. Be good to yourself and be good to the others, and manage your breakup. It will all be okay. It will all pass, and you will advance forward, and you will find new opportunity, I assure you. Just understand how you deal with your memories and how you use these techniques, and you will be able to see life as its entirety and all the wonderful things that it has to offer you, and you take advantage of it and enjoy. Be good to yourself and to the others, and talk to you soon.